to another amazing day at fmtraining.tv. Sorry for the slow start. My name is Margaret. I will be your broadcast engineer for today. I'm here with the wonderful Jacob Taylor, who is our head of the IT at RCC and one of, I think, frankly, the best server guys in the business. So we're very happy to have him on with us today. Real quick reminder, we stream on 3 platforms. We stream on Discord, YouTube, and Twitch. We are watching, or rather I am watching, all the conversation on those platforms. So if you have questions, please ask them, and I will forward them on to our presenter. Real quick, let's talk about our training schedule, because we do this 5 days a week. Cool. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're doing 3 variations on the same topic, but it does change depending on what hardware you've got. So we're doing installing FileMaker Server 2023 on Windows, Linux, and Mac. I know a lot of people have asked about Linux in particular, so Linux will be Tuesday. Feel free to sign up for that and you'll get a notification. Thursday, Leland Lawn will be back discussing the Execute FileMaker Data API, which will be an interesting topic. Friday will be OCR. We had a couple people wanting Christian Schmitz from Monkey Bread to get into the variety of ways you can use OCR with the Monkey Bread plugin, so we'll be back to talk about that this Friday. If you'd like to support the channel, we would greatly appreciate it. We have the FM Training annual subscription bundle. This helps keeps the lights on, keeps people running. So if you would like to support all of us doing our education and our constant outreach to the developer community, feel free to pick one of these. One of them comes with FileMaker. The other 2 are different amounts of video courses. All of them are pretty much 100+ hours of high-energy video content. Jacob is a presenter in it. Richard's a presenter, obviously. Nick. A lot of the people you've come to know and love in the live streams are presenters and teachers about a variety of topics in these series. So whether you're a beginner or you're looking to refresh some knowledge on specific topics like, oh, I know how to do relationships and scripting, but I haven't done server stuff in forever. We have a whole course on that. Feel free to pick that up. Helps keeps us going. We appreciate people who have bought it. Thank you very much. Seriously. With that being said, I would do hellos, but I'm still getting my chats assembled so I can say hello to all you wonderful people. So I'll hand it over to Jacob. Jacob, what are we doing today?
A Windows Server install. The most exciting thing anybody does. Hold on.
Yes.
Little late start today, but we wanted to do. This is going to be a little bit lightning speed, just so everybody's clear. There's a few things where I'm gonna basically elide it, or like do one where you might otherwise do 3 or 4 or something like that, just to show you guys the direction this stuff will go. Mostly just so we can actually fit this in like an hour, 90 minutes, end to end, have something to look at the end of it, hopefully. As you all know, FileMaker Server 2023 came out last week, and yeah, so let's do it. There's a bunch of changes. You should review the stream from Wednesday of last week. I think it's published already.
Linked out to everybody.
Perfect, thank you. And that answers a bunch of questions, most importantly about kind of some of the new features and stuff that are coming out that are, exciting or concerning to people or whatever. We had one of the PMs and one of the, I think, server QA people, Connor, on Doug Wallace and Connor Brock, respectively, on stream Wednesday. And so if you have questions about the features and that kind of stuff, I would tell you to just go watch that first and then come back. Watch this when you're done. Second one, and I want to address it just because it was asked immediately at the beginning. Ed Burkle in Discord over here asked, is FMS 2023 stable enough? I.e., I'm on 19 something, 19.4, 19.5, 19.3, whatever. Should I jump immediately? Our answer to that question is basically always no. And it's the short version of that conversation is, as always, if you have a burning pressing need that is solved by the new version, you end up having to pick to upgrade immediately. However, if you do not have a burning pressing need, there's no, crashing bug, whatever, right? Some operational issue that you're having solved by the new version. No, you don't have to go up on the new version, and we wouldn't advise you to do so. One of the big features in Server 2023 is a system that lets you clean up extra fluff, RAM usage and things, sessions that are long dead, etc., out of the memory on FileMaker Server, specifically associated with WebDirect users and other like web presentation engine, client sessions and stuff. That'll help a lot with RAM usage on WebDirect. I also there's a change log of a not yet released version that might come out in the future potentially that addresses a bug with that process. And so once I see that particular version, I'm not going to say anything more about that, but once I see it live, we'll probably make a full-throated endorsement of the new version because everyone who doesn't listen to us is going to go install 2023 immediately and find the bugs in it. And then whatever this patch that comes out will have, some selection of those bugs fixed in it. And so that's the point at which I'll go, you don't need to, but if you want to, you're probably good. So no questions, no questions, no. All right, fantastic. So let's get this going as quickly as we can. I've already logged into my Amazon account. You'd have to have one of these started to see this. The sign up's not too hard these days, but I'm just going to ignore that part of it. I'm going to go in. So operating system support on FileMaker Server 2023 is Windows Server 2019 and Windows Server 2022. You'll need, I believe, standard or enterprise data center, whatever that variant is called. And you'll need the desktop experience if that matters for on-site people. We're doing the demonstration in Amazon, but you could reuse the better part of this conceptually, at least not the literal steps that I'm going to do here, because you're probably not going to Amazon Web Services and booting machines in your own data center. Although I think if you have an outpost, you can do that. I don't think any of our clients do, but so we're gonna go. We have one instance. This one you don't care about. Some of you may recognize that product. That is dead, and the machine will be shut at some point here. So we need to launch an instance, which means I need to go back to the dashboard of the home screen. We're gonna launch an instance. Yep, we're not using a template. We're doing a fresh one. This is gonna be my Claris FileMaker Server 2023. We'll just name it that. We're going to do one instance, and then we have to customize almost everything else on here. So first thing, operating system. I said it before, Windows. We're looking at 2022 base. That sounds perfect. You don't want core. I believe that's used for more thin client servers. Which would be things closer to Docker, and if you're trying to Dockerize Windows and stuff like that. We're not going to do that here. And so we picked 2022. Yeah, English, whatever. That sounds great. I don't speak other languages, so I kind of have to. That's the right architecture. Okay, good. The instance type, you have quite a bit of choice here. They default you to a T2. There's also a T3 that's available. You will need at least a large of whatever kind on Amazon. That is on Amazon, that's a dual core, some kind of dual core, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. Those are basically the minimum specs. If you are a rule lawyer or you watch this after the fact, you'll note these do not have a quad core, which is the actual minimum spec. Claris recommends a quad core processor or greater actually at this point. And again, also 8 gigs of RAM is the minimum for the server side. So it's close. I, in general, though, would not push customers up to like a T3 or an X large. X large is the first one where you get a quad core on Amazon, and then in that case, you get 16 gigs of RAM. But yeah, it's not, if you only have 5 to 10 users or something, it's not necessary. You'd have to really load the server down to justify using like an X large for a small user count. So we're going to do a T3 large. That's the current generation of those. Again, dual core, 8 gig of RAM, perfectly good pricing. We're going to create a new key pair. This is because I'm not using another one. I'll show you what we do with this in a minute, but the short version is they encrypt the Windows password with this key. And so if you like lose or forget this key or something like that, you will have problems getting your Windows password back after. or retrieving it in the first place. Oops, I can't include leading or trailing spaces. Cool, so let's try it. Oh, it doesn't get mad. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to create key pair. You'll see down here on my little bottom bar, this gave me the download of the key. That's now assigned. Perfect. Again, do not lose that file. I'm going to edit this. Oh, is there no default here? Ooh, that could be fun. I don't have a VPC created. Uh-oh. All right, so I think that's the boring one. We're going to use the web portal wizard. That'll be fine. I'm going to auto assign a public IP. That matters for remote access. We'll show the elastic IP when we get there, or what Amazon calls an elastic IP, which is actually what everyone else would call a static IP. I can also explain why that why those aren't the same thing, but give us 1 second. So we're going to do, I'm just going to name everything that. Perfect. We need a remote desktop. That's correct. I'm going to do my IP so the rest of you don't get to share the remote desktop with me. The big part is going to be adding the FileMaker port numbers. So we need port 5003, we need 80 and 443 for the 2 web ports. Also, just to state it in case you're using it, if you have an external ODBC data source, very specifically, I mean some sort of third-party data system that pulls from FileMaker using FileMaker Server as the data source, you'll need to open, and I'll show where we do that, but this is one of the places, you'll need to open port 2399 also. That's the ODBC or JDBC port. So we're going to do everybody for this because we want FileMaker accessible to all. We're going to add a web port, which is HTTP. Perfect. Whoops. Sorry, I keep clicking. It doesn't look like a button, but it is a button. And then the third one is we're going to do the same thing, except it's going to be HTTPS because we want those wonderful secure connections. And that's the basics. So I have one privileged address for remote desktop, and then I have 2 more. One is the FileMaker, one is the FileMaker port, one is the web port, and one is the other web port. You may note we don't configure a port 16,000 anymore. That used to be for the FileMaker Server admin console when you're off of the machine, like not the local host one, not that one, but if you're somewhere else on the internet and you want to like go do FileMaker Server admin console stuff. We don't do that anymore because that whole thing, as of I think 19.4, is handled via port 443. So, all right. We're going to make this bigger. The one thing I'm going to ignore here is RCC usually does multiple drive setups. So we'll have like an operating system drive, a database drive, a backups drive, and then kind of specific to us actually, if you have a lot of container data, we'll put that on its own drive also and use the FileMaker Server additional directory feature to put the databases, put the backups, put the container data, in 3 different places. That lets it scale better. So if you dump a lot of documents in, because we keep by default we keep like 60 backups, and so if you imagine I put a document in there, cool, well that was 1 megabyte docx and now it's 60 megabytes of docx, and there's no need for that. Most of the documents don't change, so you're required to have a different backup process for those sets of files at a reduced frequency, but that's why we do it. So just stating, I'm going to ignore that here, and we're going to do one big boot drive, basically. And then I'm going to change this from a GP2 to a GP3. I actually am not clear why they default to GP2 still. That is not the chat bot, just to be clear. They're different. David Angel asked, what is GP3? It's general provision 3 or general something 3. 2 is the old one, 3 is like the current generation. They are both solid state drives, but in Amazon parlance. GP2s are, the performance actually is good. I just don't recommend them for anybody because you save 10%, up to 20, I think, in some regions, for a GP3 SSD, and the performance is 5 to 8 times faster. And so for the reason of saving 10 to 20% and getting a multiple better performance, I would just recommend using the thing that's faster and cheaper. I honestly, I think the reason that they still use GP2 everywhere is because they have a ton of it, and so there's no reason to throw it out. And for not FileMaker, for non-database applications or whatever, it probably doesn't matter. If your whatever your workload isn't disk bound like that, it probably doesn't matter. And yeah, but just for this, the latency is way more important. So there's all kinds of cool stuff in here, but none of this matters for our usage. So in one server, we have the right operating system, right type. We have a big disk. And I said that was why I was going to do that. And then that's it. Cool. All right. So we're going to launch. I'm going to launch this machine. Oh, it's asking me something. Oh, good. It caught a problem. Nice. So that's the CIDR notation. You guys can Google that, but the short version is it's like, what networks is this thing accessible from? So everybody, and then I forgot one, but everybody. So I'm going to do launch instance, and now it's going. Perfect. And so we're going to politely talk for a couple of minutes while that machine boots up for the first time. Realistically, though, this is like a 30-second operation, I think. It's one of the things I actually like about Amazon. Sometimes a customer asks, hey, how do I get better, more performance or something like that? And on Amazon, the answer is always you can pay them more money. And that's like annoying because everything costs more, but also awesome because if you need more performance, you can often just pay for it. And so for servers like this, it's like you're overloaded. If you overload your machine, that won't matter for this demo machine. But if you're overloading your machine, or Amazon's like, hey, you should upgrade this, like you're running over your baselines for usage and stuff. There's always other instance types to switch to. So, but most of them cost more money, or at least equivalent money. So nice. So there's our instance listing. I clicked on the little link here that it gives you. We don't care about that code, but that uniquely identifies our server in Amazon. You see it's got the public IP address here, which is wonderful. We've got all these keys and stuff lined up, so that looks great. And then the one thing that we're waiting on here basically is the status check. The machine may actually be up and accessible at this point, but one of the things that you do when you launch an Amazon instance, it does a status check. And that's like, did the virtual machine that we just launched come up correctly? It's not even is it accessible to me currently or something? Can Amazon access its own thing? Because if it fails like that badly or whatever, you want to know that and then abort and try again, basically. So, general purpose. Sorry, GP3 is general purpose. Thank you. David Angel posted that in Discord. So main first thing we have to do here is, as you might imagine, I don't have the admin password. We have to get that. So let me move my little box down. I have my little cameras, which I don't think you guys can see. And so we're gonna, this machine is selected, yes. And then, so I'm going to do actions, and I need, is it instance settings? Sorry, I'm looking for it. It's one of these options. Security? There it is, security. Sorry. I didn't know which menu option it was under. We usually do this with the API, so I don't have to click this too often, but there's a get Windows password right here. So you select that and go, and it goes, oh, there it is. And so we're looking for that key that they forced us to download previously. I'm going to go select that. I'm going to hit open, and it loaded the whole thing in here. And so we're going to click decrypt, and here's our awesome. Look at our great password. So we're going to keep that. Let's see, that IP address is not the one that we want to deal with. Hold on. So I'm going to bring my little Microsoft desktop thing over here. So we're going to add a connection. I'm going to put it in the stream demos to grab the IP here in a minute. So the username for these is always administrator because there's only one remote, basically one admin remote desktop account. I just pasted that password. There you go. So we're going to do that. So I've just saved that account in my Microsoft Remote Desktop. I'm going to say OK. So I don't actually need any of those things. And that IP address is in fact not the one I want. So I'm going to select this and I want that IP. Perfect. We're going to paste it in the box and FMS 2023. And that's about it. There's one other thing I customize in here. Oh, it's not letting me for some reason. I've had problems. They had pushed an update on this app a while back that gives me issues. Come on. There it is. Okay, I don't want that. I want to make the window like HD so you guys can see something. And that'll do it. All right, cool. Save. All right, so I've got that. That is the IP address. I gave it a friendly name. I saved the username and password in my remote desktop. That's not strictly necessary, obviously, but it's a convenience. And what it means is that I can double click and hopefully this works. It says no. I love it. All right. So let's find out what problem we're having. Hold on, I'm checking this out right here. So what did 3389? So that's not the issue.
Now they know how to troubleshoot this problem if they get it.
Right? There's situations where you can get what I want to see is, so this is so this is my route table. Does it have in and out? Oh, target local. Does it not have an out route? Really? So that is V6, really? Okay. Subnet is this one. And so what is this subnet? Oops, why doesn't it pick it for me? It should pick it for me. Oh, there is no default. That's why. There's no default subnet in this region.
Oh.
That is curious. I wonder why that's not here. Oh, maybe I should have done this the more annoying but easier way. That's okay. All right. Well, okay, so that's what we're looking for. So you guys might see, so I looked at one of these and it's got, the other one had 2 entries and they're both local. This one has 2 more entries attached and it goes to IGW. So that means in Amazon parlance, IGW is Internet Gateway. There it is. Okay, so that's, how do I do this? So I have a VPC, and I'm going to use this one. So that's what's missing is it has no Internet Gateway. So that's no, that's no. And then, oh, it gives me a map now. Nice. All right, so I'm going to add an Internet Gateway. That is, oh, that one's supposed to be attached. It says it's attached to that VPC. Target, yeah, I was thinking of if we just add an IGW. Yeah, like that. Can I just do that? And then I probably want the second one, which is going to be the V6 edition of the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if this just works. Yeah, propagated, no. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. And then, so then that's a lookalike to the other ones. Now I have my 2 in and 2 out. Beautiful. And then our subnet is, okay, so we don't have an explicit subnet association. We have a not explicit subnet association. It has those 2. All right, so let's double try. Nice, beautiful. All right, you guys just got to see the most live demo problem I've ever run into.
What happened there and how'd you fix it?
Yeah, so very simply, I deployed a server in, so actually let's go one step back. Amazon specific problem. Amazon has virtual private clouds. That's what they're called. You can have tons of them in the same region, and it is what it sounds like. You have you can have multiple independent, they're all in the same place, they're all in the same interface, but multiple independent virtual clouds, right? Cloud environments. Can be like a one machine bubble, or you can have, a cloud, 1,000 machines, whatever, inside a bubble. And you could have 3 of those in the same region, right? You have one that does one type of workload or is one of your application services, 2, 3, etc. So within that, as you might imagine, the internet connection needs to have a route that comes in from the internet to Amazon into your little bubble. And then you need another path that goes the opposite direction back out, so that, I come in and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to log in on remote desktop. That's our demo, right? And I try to do that, and it actually probably did, the data probably made it into the server on the incoming direction, but there was no way for the server to send its data back out and go, yeah, give me your password, or congratulations, you authenticated successfully, or whatever, right? Whatever that looks like, I don't know. But there was no route to send the data back out. So that got added. All right. Let's go.
Cool. If anyone has any questions about that, feel free to do.
Yeah.
Real quick from David Angel, can you use the IP6 in RDP?
Yeah. I don't know if because it lacked an internet gateway out, a route outwards, I don't know if that would have worked. I do not have IPv6, however, so no, I cannot use it as a practical answer. On a technical basis, probably. So. Technical, yes, but this office does not have IPv6 support. We have Charter, Spectrum. If any of you are familiar with them, they're very fast, but not the best to work with. And one of the problems I have is they are not proactively rolling out IPv6 support, which matters to almost nobody except me. And I have made the formal request of them, and they were like, "Cool, we don't get that request from anybody."
So much for that.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Absolutely. All right. The answer to that question doesn't matter, which is why I'm ignoring it. All right. So first things first, we've done nothing. We're looking at our machine. There's a couple of things that you want to think about. So let's look at what we got. This is a fresh machine. There's a couple of things we almost always do with these. One is you might want to name it something useful. The reason for that is because if you see up here in the right-hand corner, if you see this host name, it's like EC2AMAZ A2IJV2Q, and that is politely not super useful. It's useful if you have a bunch of these or something and you're trying to differentiate specific ones, but most large hosting operations name using a formula that's, the local internet connection, exchange, the airport, something like that, something that you have a little format out. And then maybe part of it's what the machine does. We usually just name these business name -FMS or something like that, just so it's clear. And then if you all know, at the top of the window in FileMaker Pro, if you've not otherwise named the window, it usually has the server name in parentheses, and so it just looks nice there basically. But NC asks, what is the cost for the server I have set up? Let's see, at present, 250 gigs of space would be $25 a month, I believe, 10 cents a gig, I believe. And then the instance itself, the T3 large, is another approximately 60, 65, somewhere in there. So
I need to 100.
Yeah, ballpark of 100. Our baseline machines, when they're set up automatically, using the regular RCC process, are about $90 a month for a Windows one, and comparable somewhere along the lines of 60 to 65 for a Linux. We're going to do the Linux one tomorrow, with less having to figure out why there's no internet gateway on the VPC, hopefully, since I've now fixed that and I don't have to fix it again tomorrow. So I'm going to do one thing here, which is I'm just going to rename this just to show that. We hit properties. You wait for Windows to arrive. A new feature in specifically Windows 2022 is a rename this PC button. I'm just going to do that. We're going to say next. It's going to like it, and then say restart later. So I don't have to do that. Cool. That's it. That's just for friendly purposes. The second thing is we need to get our Server 2023 installer. And so I'm going to go over to Slack that you guys can't see off my screen. And FMS, I'm going to copy this. I'm grabbing the link. You'd get it off of your the link that Claris sends you that has your like license key code. Usually it's like a license certificate download thing. I know a lot of you are used to doing that by now. I'm also pleased in 2023 they finally deleted the text box where you could paste the old the key string thing in there because that hasn't, at least in my experience, that basically hasn't worked since 18. And so the box is finally gone. So you know, oh, it's only the license certificate now. I don't want any of that. Thanks. This is no. Can we not? I'm going to send this clip of the video to Microsoft and ask them why they insist on live streaming browser setup. Can I not paste the link? Did I disable the... No, I probably did. All right, cool. There, you guys will learn something. A fun one. So I messed up setting this up. If you go here, so I want to, oh, it is set up. Okay. All right, so something didn't paste correctly. You can pick the clipboard sharing between my computer and the remote machine. And so you can like turn it off if you want to, for example. Let me try this again. Copy link and paste. There it is. Beautiful. Okay. That'll take seconds to download. Done. Yeah, this part's actually going to be pretty easy. We'll spend more time going over the admin console and stuff like that. Maybe set up a backup schedule. You guys should set up a backup schedule.
I'm going to mention this again because we always get like comments about this the last couple times this has happened. You see the --20? That is 2023. The
Yep.
version number is 20.
Yeah.
It's called 2023. If you get 20, don't panic. That's what you're looking for.
Yep.
So we've gotten a couple of comments about that in the past, so just might as well preempt that right now.
Yep. They like named the product one thing, and then there's an internal version number now, basically. And the internal version number is the one that you're expecting, which is, yep, the version after 19 is 20. But that is not the version that they went live with for the product. And so we have this awkward FileMaker Pro 2023, FileMaker Server 2023. That's actually internally version 20. It's 20.1.1. All right, so quick install. Just double clicking and not doing anything fancy. We're going to leave this as a trial because I don't want to deal with the license certificate stuff, but I'll show you where that goes. And it's pretty easy. It's going to ask us for it, I think, during the install. I think it still does that. So we'll say, okay. This is going to ask you, do you want the installer to set up the web server and all of that things for you? Your answer is yes. The answer is yes. You want it to do that for you. There is a valid no answer there. If you were doing, which actually even RCC doesn't do, but you could do fully automated installs where you disable essentially a bunch of the automation inside the FileMaker Server installer. Because you're going to set up IIS, you're going to install, there's like a couple plugins that go in IIS. IIS is Internet Information Services. IIS is the web server on Windows. You will go and install, you would like manually install various little plugins that FileMaker Server uses into IIS. If you just click yes on that dialog, it'll do it all for you. You don't have to care. David Angel asks, can I set up a processor use on idle time, like to be elastic depending on use? I think the short answer is no. The longer answer is a T3 is already that, basically. We don't It's actually kind of complicated to fully explain it, and I've been using it for years, and I just learned stuff. There's a credit system that come with the T series CPUs, T2, T3. Those are the ones I've mentioned. They look like a dedicated server, dedicated for your use and your use only, and that's not what they are at all. You gather a number of credits every hour. That the number and all that doesn't matter too much, but it's based on the size and fanciness and expense of the server, like the number of credits that you get. And so if you use too much CPU in an hour, you burn credits. If you don't, then you gather credits, and the credits only accrue up to a certain number, basically. And so if you imagine that, it's like, if I use too much for a really long time, I will run out of credits eventually. And so we had that happen recently, and I learned more about how that system works. But that is essentially a shared CPU system like that. It doesn't like make it cheaper when the server's bored or something like that. It's the opposite setup. So if the server is the opposite of bored, if the server's doing too much work all the time, you pay more money, rather than the other way around where you'd save money based on a lack of usage. So kind of, right? It's backwards of what you're actually asking, but it's on that same sort of trend, same idea. We're waiting on a progress bar. That's it. Sorry, guys.
I appreciate the progress bar's appearance. Still hails from the 1990s. It's very nostalgic.
David Angel is typing what he thinks EC2 means, and the elasticity. So I guess as an explanation, one of the confusing parts is not locating. So it's like the thing's called elastic. You have elastic computing, you have an elastic IP, you have whatever. There's a few things in Amazon that are named that way. The elasticity is not at the individual item level. That would be the wrong way to understand it. So it is not elasticity of CPU, which would be to say, as David is asking, can a CPU, like the charges or something, scale up and scale back down based on your usage? It doesn't work that way. That is not where the elasticity exists. The elasticity is in the infinite capacity of a cloud. So the answer is, it's not that we can scale up or scale down a single server. It is that we can scale up or scale down from 100 to 1,000 servers and back to 100 again. It's not on the individual machine scalability. It is cloud scale. So it's about, you have a workload that can be hold on, I must say yes here. You have a workload that can be broken up or otherwise made piecemeal in some way. Or you can think of many types of computer work that might be done that way. And so what the elasticity is your ability to spin up potentially hundreds or thousands of machines, like simultaneously approximately, to go do the pieces of work, and then you throw them away at the end. And that is the part where it stops charging you the hourly fee that everyone thinks about, or that we usually present for clients. We tell them what the approximate monthly fee is. But like the real power of the cloud is being able to do something like that. So you probably wouldn't do that with a Windows machine like this. We kind of use it as a generic hosting provider, essentially. We do finish, and so the next part goes. But that said, if, for example, you had some Python app that pulled a chunk of work, did some computations, and then spit out a result, that process may take hours, but could be broken to 1,000 pieces. You could have a little, 10 or 100 or 50 or whatever, pick for your business, number of servers that get launched up and maybe brought back down again at the end of the work party, the work chunk, to scale out rather than scaling up. If that makes sense. David Angel, you should explain who they is. If you are talking about Dockerizing FileMaker Server, which I think is what you're addressing, okay. I don't know anything about those machines. Bring links. All right, so I'm going to accept the license agreements. I'm sure we're signing all of our children over to Claris. We're going to say primary FileMaker Server machine next. I'm not going to change that at all. This pops up every time, and it's because there's a default website that was installed by the first progress bar we stared at for a minute. You just click that and go to the next one. Okay, and then I don't actually have an org, and so this is going to be a trial. We're doing a trial. We're going to use the most secure password known to man. Password, you know how that goes. Don't actually do that. Thank you. You should use an annoying password that you don't use anywhere else. And if you can tell me what that password is over the phone, it's not complicated enough. Use more weird characters. So.
We have a question while things are happening. I typically remove the Windows Administrator account and replace it with a different account. Is that security overkill?
Is that a question addressed specifically at a FileMaker server or other Windows security usage? Because in the case of a FileMaker server, it's fine, but you'll need an account to do administrative tasks in. So, yeah. And you would not be, or I would recommend against if you are, you would not be regularly using the machine that is the FileMaker server for anything else. Claris, I can use them as the big bad guy and say they don't recommend it, but the short version is they don't write any code assuming that FileMaker server is running on a machine that has anything else running. In other words, FileMaker server is the only app on that machine. Machine here is a little squishy to be clear, but just conceptually, if you have multiple virtual machines or something, fine, have your little coterie of containers or something, that's okay. But just generally speaking, if you have a machine, that should only do FileMaker server, and you should not be undergoing any other tasks that are not basically administration of the FileMaker server. So, like, do that somewhere else. Do that on a different machine. Do it on your own, however that works for you. But yeah, don't do it on FMS. I must restart the system. Amazing. So we're going to say no. And we're going to suffer no ill effects from that. They are correct. There's a couple things that you actually do have to reboot for. It won't be relevant here, but it's not a bad message. One thing, and I'll tell you this before we get to it, just because we're getting to the hour already, whenever you're done, if you do this full setup, you configure your FileMaker server, enable or disable features, whatever you're doing, I'll just tell you, always reboot at the end. Do a full machine restart. There are many weird little small things that get fixed up by that. And there's a few different times where it's unclear that you actually do need to reboot or do not, because the change is live, and it makes it easier to just reboot it. Just reboot it. Yes. Let's see. Yes, David Angel, 16,001. Okay, so I'm going to say nope because I don't want that. We're going to use the default certificate today. You should always use an actual SSL. There are many things that will no longer work if you don't use an actual SSL. If you're in a Windows Enterprise environment and you can run your own certificate authority and push that thing out to all the clients that are in your business or something like that, that counts. But yeah, for all of our small business clients, you want an actual SSL. So we actually have technically a working FileMaker server now. Obviously, it's completely unconfigured. In 20, there are no longer features I need to tell you to turn off, except for maybe the auto open databases thing. We still always make that recommendation, just again for database safety. There are actually a couple new features to cover here. So I'm going to start with one thing. So we're going to add exactly one thing here, which is we're going to add a backup schedule. So this thing defaults to a daily at midnight. That's great. Most of our clients, their data moves more than daily, and losing an entire day would be bad. Short version. And for some of them, it wouldn't be recoverable, but for many it would. When we do our ransomware offsites, those are daily, and it's basically assessed that in a case where your business got ransomware, basically it's acceptable to lose up to that day's data or something like that. Which I don't know. We're basically picking in that situation, but we're choosing for you. But I also suspect our customers don't want to pay for the backups, because that's that's the implication to it. If you try and actually, you can do hourly ransomware offsites, and they're expensive because if you upload a backup every hour, however big that is, those have to sit for 30 days before they can be deleted. Times 24 times 30 days as your cost. So it's formidable. Not a lot of our customers actually want to pay that much. So I'm going to very quickly make one critical thing here, which is an hourly backup schedule. We're not going to customize any of that. We're going to keep 24 hourlies. We don't want 245 hourlies. We want 24. We're going to do it daily. I'm showing this just because this is the only one of these that's kind of difficult to set up because it doesn't make sense. You have a frequency daily and then it's anyway, this is how you do an hourly. When you go from midnight to 23. Some of my customers don't do this. Some of my customers do, for example, like 7 a.m. or 5 or whatever when their actual business starts in the day. And then you do the same thing. It's the rotating cycle once per hour. So we don't do 1 minute, so we want 1 hours. And that is a 1 hourly keep 24 backup schedule, and I hit save. And now our server is great. Not really. There's a couple other things just to explore here. So configuration wise, the thing I referenced at the beginning, this is the one we still tell everyone to turn off, everyone, all circumstances. It's not qualified. Just disable it. And that is so that if your FileMaker server crashes, like the machine, the instance, the virtual machine, the whatever, right? It falls over. You're going in. It might come back up again automatically. You're gonna know to go in. It's offline. It crashed. Something. Oh, right. Your hair's on fire now. You know to go in and restore from a backup. I will note, however, this stuff right here down at the bottom. The persistent cache and the persistent cache sync to disk. Those are new in Server 2023. They have the intent to help us in the case where actually I think something like this, someone has left that on and their server, FileMaker server crashes or whatever, but it doesn't not everything dies, just some of it. In that specific case, it's supposed to put the file back together again. Some of you may remember something like that from the 18 era that did not go as well. We are hopeful for this. I'm also hopeful because it's off by default, so I don't have to tell you to turn it off. If you'd like to test it, you're welcome to turn it on. Report any bugs that you find to Claris. We haven't used it yet, so I don't know how good it is. I've put in some requests for some additional technical documentation on the feature, so that we have a better idea of basically like what it's expected to do. Essentially, with the technical details on like, okay, the server came up, it has this extra cache that it's holding on to. Like, what does it do? What kind of specifically does it do? What are the implications of that? How will it, if it damages the file or doesn't, like if it'll if it bails out, if it finds like all that kind of stuff. What does it do? How does it work? So I hope to be able to present on that at some point here. That would be awesome because I'm excited about all of this stuff. They need to tell me how it works so I can tell you guys what to expect. Otherwise, it's just a tick box that says reduce risk and doesn't tell us how it does it. And so let's see.
No questions really. So
nothing. Okay, cool. All right, I'll keep going then.
Over to Discord.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll keep going then. All right, so I don't usually change the client stuff. This was changed in 19.6. It's not the way that setting has been forever. And so just be aware, filter databases is enabled after 19.6. That's a default setting change that Claris made. What it specifically means is whenever you fire up Pro, WebDirect, whatever, before it'll even show you files live on the server, it asks you to log in and then only shows you files on the server that your credentials work for. So if we had multiple drives or something, I mentioned that before, you'd do the additional database directory. So that would be like, I can't do it here because I don't have the drive, but it'd be like FileWin, d:/FileMaker data. I have to spell it correctly. There we go. So it'd be something like that. And you could put that in there, and then you'd have another location for your FMP12 database files. When you turn something like that on, you get an additional container data directory. That's the split I talked about previously, where you have database files in one location, container data in another location, and then you're handling the backups for each of those things separately on different time schedules or something like that. There's also progressive backups, which you can enable here. Those are awesome. They're like a rolling backup that's every 5 minutes. I didn't used to recommend them. I do now. They now print a log entry when they run. And that is incredibly important because it means I can use a progressive backup for crash restoration, which is like the most awesome because it means it keeps 2 of them and they're every 5 minutes. I believe the 5 minutes is adjustable. But if you can confirm via the log that one or each of them ran recently, you can cut a customer's data loss from like the last hourly down to maybe 10, worst case 10 minutes ago, 10 minutes before crash, which is fantastic. That's a huge reduction in how much data one can lose. So super useful. I don't need to cover that today. Notifications, I always recommend turning on email notifications. They're kind of annoying, but the alternative is not hearing from your FileMaker server at all. SSL, this is where you do it. One key point, signed certificate, intermediate, and private key file. You want to include the intermediates. If your SSL provider gives them to you, please include them because otherwise FileMaker Pro specifically will not fully validate the SSL. It'll give you an orange lock and everything will look good. Like you'll pop open the little SSL checker and everything will look perfect, but the lock's orange. So, and that's usually not always, but usually that's because your intermediate certificates were not installed. So just be aware of that. Last section that everyone's excited about, WebDirect. So I'm going to halt right here and we're going to do one thing, which is we're going to go grab Corretto. That is Amazon's Java. The one that I think, actually, let me click this and see if it makes me, yeah, okay. And so the other one, there's 2 ways to do this. You have a globally installed Java or a Java that is specific for FileMaker Server. The specific for FileMaker Server one would be Adoptium if you use that. The link and everything else is right here, the directions for it. One change with 2023, Corretto, Java, it doesn't matter, is that it's version 17. It was 11 previously, and then actually before that 8. So I'm going to go grab Corretto 17.
You're grabbing, I have questions. Do you need to use the FMS admin to set the cache?
This is a question about the RAM cache, I'm assuming. And if that is in fact the question, you in fact cannot set it on the admin console still to this day. It's one of the features they still have never brought back from 16. I wish that would change. It's a super important part of tuning the server and actually becomes more important if you turn on the hold on, sorry, let me get this Windows x64. This is the one that you'll pull if you're on Windows. You see, I just Googled it. It's Corretto 17 downloads list. It's on Amazon's website. So we go here, platform Windows x64 JDK. I'm just going to pull that one. That's it. That'll download. There it goes. Perfect. To address the RAM cache question, so that's like the one final remaining feature that they have not brought back from 16. 16, FileMaker Server 16, was the last version where you could set the server-side RAM cache on the admin console. There was like a little box you type your number of megabytes into and hit go or hit save or whatever. This becomes actually more important, not less now, because while this is off by default, this persistent cache feature, if you or your business determinations decide that having that feature on is the best choice, basically, please be advised, it cuts the RAM cache in half. And so the default of FileMaker Server is still 512 megabytes of RAM cache. If your database is larger than that, you should probably increase it, short version. And so if you then turn on the persistent cache, you've cut it in half, so you're talking 256 megabytes of actual in-memory record cache on FileMaker Server, like usable. So you'll want to boost that as the short version. If you are fine with 512 megabytes, but you want persistent cache, then set it to a gig, and then you'll have effectively you'll have the same amount. So I don't have good advice on that yet. We're going to test it and play with it and see what the real implications are. But the short version is it cuts the cache amount in half, the effective cache in half. So all right, so we downloaded Corretto. That's somewhere here. I can go locate that in my downloads. Yeah, here it is. All right, cool. So here's Explorer. I'm just going to install this. I'm not going to do anything interesting. We just double click a bunch. Next, yep, next, install. I love it. Perfect. If you want to, I don't know, put it on a different hard drive, you could do that. But like I said, we're doing one big drive here. All right, so that's it. That's done. I'm going to go over here to, and this should just work, ideally. Oh, it won't. Oh. It does like startup detection. So here, watch this. This will be silly, but I'll show you super secret. Windows will comply. We're waiting on Windows. All right, so I'm just going to do a plain restart. There's no databases live on the server, so otherwise you would close the database and potentially also shut FMS. I'm not doing that here because I'm just going to do a hard restart of the whole thing. Again, the only live database in this thing is the little demo one, and I'm not going to hurt that. So, all right, so that restarted fully. Awesome. We're going to wait like 2 seconds. Corretto is Java. Opera Dad and Discord asked, I got distracted with other work. What's Corretto? Corretto is Java. You need Java for WebDirect and Web Presentation Engine. If you don't use WebDirect or Web Presentation Engine, you don't need Java. So we're going to do refresh. Our admin console is back. Wonderful. Hopefully this works the second time. Let me open my database, remember a little demo file. And this did not automatically open because we turned off the automatically open databases feature. Thing will be red, and then it'll turn blue. Once it's blue, there it goes. All right, so that's live. Cool. We go to connectors. We're on web publishing. I'm going to turn WPE on. That will look like it's doing nothing because it's the first time it's ever booting. And then this thing will turn blue here in a second, just like the other. I think it gets a dot. Maybe it's green. We'll see. Maybe they changed the color. Oh, blue. Nice. Okay, cool. So there's that. And then I can turn web publishing, which is actually WebDirect, on. And so now we have live WebDirect. Other things you might want to do, there's a data API. We turn that on all of our machines. There's no harm to it, really. Plugins, only relevant if you actually use a server-side plugin, not relevant to Pro plugins or something like that. Those go in Pro. If you have ODBC, I mentioned that before. That is port 2399. I'm not going to demo it today, but you have to open it in both the Amazon firewall and the Windows firewall, which we have not done the Windows firewall yet, so I'll show you that in a second. We have a machine that's like not reachable right now as a short version. And then admin stuff. There's a few new features in here. So if you do a setup like I did where we don't put the license certificate or any of that stuff in here, this tab right here, the administration tab, first one, FileMaker licenses, that's where you'll bring your license cert, the license certificate file license cert. Those are downloaded from your licensing page that you get from Claris. If you don't know where that is, I would go locate that actually. If you buy a bundle from us, you don't get that. But if you have your own, a 5-pack or whatever of licensing, you should have that page bookmarked or, saved somewhere important. You'll put it in here, and that'll be the license certificate file. And then it'll ask you the business name as well. And that's whatever you put on the paperwork that you sent to either us or Claris, depending on who you bought it from. You can do public keys for admin API stuff now. You can change the admin password. This is super useful. So as everyone noticed, I mentioned it before, admin remote access to the admin API or admin console, admin API are on port 443 now. That's the web port. And so if you were previously going, I don't want to let people access that because it was on port 16,000, so you can make sure it doesn't leave your network. And then now it's on port 443, which of course is definitely going to be able to leave your network because it's web secure stuff. And so you're going to be loading your container data through that, or data API if you have like offsite, some sort of API that talks to the FileMaker server, something like that. You can individually lock down the FileMaker server admin console and admin API to a list of IP addresses. And if you just turn it on, I think if I just turn it on, it defaults, to nothing. So you have to like add, hey, this IP, like the IT guy's IP or something like that, needs to be able to access the admin console. And so if you're not on that list, you can't get in. Very cool. There's this administrator role thing got brought back. This was like ancient, last seen in FileMaker Server 16, I think, the admin groups with different roles and stuff. That is more or less back. We didn't use it too much back then either, but and then we have the latest version of all of this stuff. So for external auth, this is logging into databases. You can do that. This is admin console sign it, and then you can do Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Apple, like an Apple ID. And then there's also a custom OAuth or IDP, which would be Ping or Okta, or I forget the list. There's like 6 of them they specifically tested with that are the common ones, basically. So you can set that up. And then finally, last thing as the tour, our log viewer and new features in 2023. We have some other logs. Ooh, it lets me see the backlog. Yeah. That is a FileMaker admin console, which I have not seen on this picker before. So that's awesome. So there's this. You may remember server-side script errors went into the event log. You can split them out now, which is awesome, so that you don't have to deal with finding, your server-side script debugging that you might be trying to do in all of the other login and log out and disconnects, and somebody forgot their password too many times and their laptop went to sleep and this kind of stuff. It's like cool, it's relevant server logging, but not what you're looking for. You can part that out onto its own thing. I think Richard did it, or I think we demoed that Wednesday last week. So, but it's cool. It just does what it says on the tin. You get a specific log file that's just server-side script errors. So, all right, questions?
How to make backup without the picture containers?
Yeah, I'm not demoing that today.
Okay, sorry. You said that I missed that.
Mhm.
And then
I don't have multiple drives, so it's not super feasible to actually demonstrate that. I would only tell you to go look at a previous one, previous one of our streams of these, because I've demoed it before on live stream, and not, combine the information. Basically, nothing on that part of it has changed at all. So,
yeah. So otherwise, I think we're good.
Distracted. Yeah, cool. All right, so that's most of this. Couple other things that we do. I guess if people have questions, I can address them. That would be best. But
I don't really see any.
See. What's another cool thing? Yeah, there's a couple like script schedules and stuff that are like, I like these. So here's a neat one. I went configuration, script and verify schedules. We talked about these magic scripts. That's what I call them, because they're like, they don't exist, but they do, if you know where to find them. So if you come in here, you do configuration, script, and verify schedules, you create a new one, a system script. Usually this would be like, for example, a PowerShell or a batch script on Windows, shell, and then .shell on Mac and Linux. They can go in the FileMaker Server scripts directory. Let me show you that. So I go to this PC, we go to local disk C, program files, FileMaker, FileMaker Server, data, and then scripts. right? You see this path on my screen here. And it'll be something similar if you're on Mac or Linux. You can put a PowerShell or a batch script in here, and they will. It's difficult to debug those, just to be clear, but if you've done so and you put it in there, you can schedule it on FileMaker Server. There are magic ones in here, though, because as you saw in that folder, there are no scripts. I have not put any on the server, but there are a few that now exist. And so these two are older. These this top one, purge temp DB, they're all sysdefault, purge whatever sysdefault something. So purge temp DB blows out the temporary database files on the server side that are associated with user sessions. They can help with, I don't know, various kinds of weird cache corruption issues and stuff like that. There's a verify all DB. That one is also awesome, although it is very disruptive. It will close all databases on the server, run a full database verification on it, and then open them if it passes. That's disruptive because we're closing all the files. It'll boot everybody and all that kind of stuff. But for example, if you do not have people working on a weekend or something, you could run that at some awful hour of the morning on Saturday or Sunday to double check everything. That will send you emails and complain at you if there's a problem. And what that means is your database failed verification, and it means there's some big issue somewhere that has occurred that nothing else, didn't break anything else, whatever. Super important if like database integrity is very important to your business. There's other things that you can do, but that one's cool. The one that these two are new as of 2023, and it is what it sounds like, run garbage collection. So that is and then on the secondaries, and so that one is specific to the case where you have WebDirect workers, separate other machines that handle WebDirect clients connecting. In either case, what it essentially does is it tells WebDirect, a web presentation engine in this case, it has a clean up all the extra stuff that we haven't looked at recently type function, and this will blow it out and free the RAM. And so if you're dealing with issues like, for example, your WebDirect, permanently accumulates new amounts of RAM over time, and eventually you have this awful problem where like WebDirect's using too much RAM and it won't give it away. Like I'm saying there are not people on it currently. Your traffic has gone back down, but it's not giving the RAM back, and so it like causes this permanent accumulation. You can drive around that problem by forcing it to clean that stuff up. And so that's what these scheduled scripts do. I don't know. We do the purge temp database every hour, basically, currently. The only advice I got from Claris on that one was like more than once a day. I didn't get even that specific of advice from Claris on the run garbage collection one. So I'm probably going to do about the same thing, which is run it approximately hourly. It just forces a cleanup of the RAM and stuff. So there's a couple customers I'm very excited for that to be on their server, because they have that problem. They're on 19.6 and they're rebooting the server. I think restarting WebDirect specifically, but that's their public access. So it's kind of essentially rebooting the server every day or two, because the RAM just gathers and gathers and gathers, and eventually it becomes a problem. So, but they have lots of like drive-by public access type stuff going on with their system. It's a simple interface, but lots of people logging in and doing stuff. So yeah, that'll be nice when we get there, but we're gonna wait. We're not actually telling people to upgrade yet. I kind of addressed that at the beginning of the stream also. We're not telling people to upgrade yet. If you want to, go for it, obviously. And please let me know if you have problems. Because one of the reasons that we wait is to try and see if there are, big show-stopping problems on day one or whatever. Most of 20 seems to be lots of great bug fixes that we're super excited about, Pro and Server. But, people ship bugs, so nobody's perfect. Claris, the least of them. So, cool. That is most of it. Are there any other further questions or things people want to see set up?
Questions, commentary, requests?
Yeah, we can stretch it another 10 minutes. I can show probably one more thing. So there's all kinds of ways we can branch off on this too. Obviously it's only a 90-minute stream, but I can talk about this stuff for hours. Different instances you can go to. There's different volumes you can use for, as always, greater cost, but greater performance. We're going to deal with other operating systems, which will be Linux tomorrow, and then Mac is Wednesday. So
I think we're good. Nothing is being said. I assume we are all pretty happy with life.
Oh, I know what I should demonstrate before we get out of here. Exactly one thing, and the one thing somebody asked about that we can't do on the admin console. Let's adjust the RAM cache. Yeah. So I'm going to demonstrate that super quick. Let's do, so we're going to do PowerShell. It doesn't matter if you use CMD or PowerShell. Works the same either way. So I'll show you two things. We would like to set that setting, but I'm going to show you in advance because you can get the settings too. So we're going to do fmsadmin get, and then the setting is within the server config section, basically. So I'm going to config. So I'm going to do get server config. And then it's going to think for a second. It's going to ask me, these are my admin console credentials. So we're going to do our super secure admin and password. This prints out the server config settings. So the one that we're specifically concerned with is going to be this cache size setting. That's how you set that, and I'll show that in just a moment. But you guys can see there's a bunch of other stuff here. There's, oh yeah, a new default number of hosted files has been bumped from 125 to 256. There's a backup pause time. I actually don't know what that one does. I'll probably have to find out here. You can limit the number of pro connections, script sessions. This is a fun one that my customers run into all the time, secure files only. Basically, if that's on, your full access users must all have decent passwords. Short version. It doesn't require encryption or anything like that, although you should do that because that's awesome. But that one specifically is not having any full access, full access user group or whatever privilege set, and then there's a user in there that has no password or something. It won't open the file. It refuses. So I have some customers with ancient solutions that were not built in the most amazingly secure manner known to man. And so we have to turn that feature off for them, set it to false, basically. There's a stats collection interval, and then you can disable the server discovery, and that's the MDNS Avahi on Linux, and then we call it Bonjour on Windows. Yeah, so all right, so we'll do fmsadmin, and we're going to do set server config, not get config, and then we're going to set which setting. We're going to set the cache size, and we're going to set it equal to, and so the default's 512, and I guess we'll double it, and we'll say it's 1024. That sounds great. That's going to ask me for my password again. I'm going to type in that admin console credential we created previously, and then now it's set. And so if I go back over here to, for example, the task manager, more details, we should be able to find FileMaker Server in here. And it's not quite using a gig yet, but it was definitely using only a few. I didn't show you before, but it only uses a few hundred megabytes out of the box. And so doubling it means that we mostly doubled its RAM usage. So it'll floof up over a gig if you actually had users and databases and stuff on here. So someone commented in Discord, Opera Dad, I have a boss who's highly resistant to adjusting the RAM cache. He bumped it one day, and then someone ended up crawling up to his desk because an alert was sent out because the RAM usage was now over some threshold that caused an alert to go out inside the business. That's a good one, actually. We try and fill out the RAM. That's a little more dangerous these days because Claris is doing some things with the RAM. There's a couple different things. There's leaks in the product currently, small RAM leaks. Again, addressing like the WebDirect one that I mentioned earlier, and like ways to deal with that. But there's also like FileMaker Server uses more RAM and seems to floof up over time a little bit, in a way that previous versions didn't. I don't know about 2023 yet. We're going to find out as we gain more experience with the new version. But in 19, generally speaking, later versions, especially 19.6, they acquire more RAM and don't always free it immediately, which is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means you have to be careful that you have enough, like you don't set everything out to the max of everything that it can be, paper wise. So you just have to be more careful. We've found our old recommendation for the RAM cache size was basically a little less than half of what the machine can do. So right, for like an 8 gig, we'd set it to 3, basically. Number of gigs minus 1 divided by 2, so 3 or 3.5 basically. That's probably too high these days. That was really good advice in 18 and previous versions. And in 19, it seems to get less good as we move forward. And then we flip back with 2023, because if you're going to enable that quick restart, this persistent cache feature, it cuts that number in half effectively. And so our advice becomes amazing again, because you only get actually half of what you're assigning it. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, floof up. Yep, I sing opera and MA dad. Got it. So it is opera dad. Fantastic. Yeah, it does. 19.6 floofs really hard. 19.4 is great. We're going to look at 2023 as people deploy it. That's why I'm saying if you jump up onto the new version, please let us know if you have problems or weird operational challenges or stuff like that. We want to know, because it helps us give everybody else better advice. I may even be able to help you troubleshoot if there's something going on, or if it's just, nope, that's how 2023 works now, or something like that. So yeah, shoot us an email, support@rcconsulting.com. with anything that you all find out. Otherwise, listen for us. I know there's a patch coming out already. I know it exists, and it fixes something with the WebDirect RAM cache clearing, garbage collection as it's called. Fixes something with that process that makes it closer to what the words said it would do, which is fantastic, because it means somebody missed something. That's fine. Let them fix it. So. But yeah, so if nobody has any other questions, I think we land the plane.
Oh, we're good. People are saying, so Rick Files not mentioned that he can't decide between Windows or Linux, but I figured we could have a versus discussion tomorrow after.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The Linux one's even faster I mean, even with me having to freestyle this, it didn't take too long to actually set the thing up. The Linux one's even faster. We'll spend more time waiting for the file to upload, to be perfectly honest. But that conversation, yeah, we can have that conversation tomorrow, no problem. The very short version of it is there's the main thing to consider is whether you can support the Linux machine. If the answer to that question is yes, it's an option to you. If you can't, then I wouldn't even look at it. A Windows desktop computer will always be a Windows desktop computer. Cloud, local, doesn't matter. People can go in and click buttons and manage it. That's a value itself. Separately from that, the Linux one is cheaper, so if it is an option to you, you may save money by running it. You don't have to pay Microsoft as a short version. So that's literally, it's the only difference in price. So and as you go up, like in scale, number of users, how big the server needs to be, how powerful, etc., the difference in price becomes more prescient, not less. Because when you're a larger business, you're like, no, we want a real quad 6, 8 core thing, 32 gigs of RAM, like a, decently beefy server up in Amazon. And those actually incur the full cost of the Windows licensing, which these T machines don't. So it's a little deceptive. And so at that point, you're paying the actual, it's on an hourly basis. Amazon like hides all of this from you, but you're actually paying the full Windows licensing cost at that point. And so well, the dollar signs add up rapidly. And so most of our clients don't actually use that, or if they do, they end up there's somebody that like has their own cloud, so we just end up deploying in their environment anyway.
Everyone, thank you for coming. Sorry for the late start. We had some hardware malfunctions that will be resolved and are now resolved. So we appreciate your patience. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow at the normal time, and without any hardware malfunctions, we'll be back to normal. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!